having left the safety and the security of the hivers, a decision was made. To the north they would travel, following the coast, unsure of what they would find out there, but knowing that this route took them far away from the Holy Nation and the United Cities, far away from those who sought the blade. The water burned, just like the lakes and rivers in vain. The cat knew it would make them all the harder to follow. Finally, on the other side, their journey could continue. The land was still lush with vegetation, thanks to the heavy rainfall, and while it made travel somewhat difficult, it was preferable over the blistering sun of the deserts. Danger, as ever, was never far away. And while Cat had come far in his trading, he was still far from a master. Thankfully for Cat, the guerrillas of Vane were more interested in protecting their territory than eating the flesh of men. Still, the creature was wounded, slowly bleeding out. It would pose no threat to the shivering, injured man. And as the sun set on their first day, Cat would rise again. A small fire offered the two travelers what little comfort they could afford. With the sounds of guerrillas still close by, it would not be a night of rest for Cat, even with his companion. He'd still need to be alert, aware. And as the blood-red sky slowly shifted into darkness, so too did the sands of time shifting within their glass. Morning would come, if they could survive the night. After agonizing hours, light finally touched the continent once again, and with that morning light came visitors, hivers from Vane that knew Beakbane well. There was a chance to trade, and a chance to follow them for some time. The few cats that Cat had been able to earn himself so far would allow him the luxury of small ration packs made up of food cubes and dried meat. In addition, they welcomed Cat as a protector of their wares. He even got to settle a debt. The same gorilla from the day prior seemingly had survived its wounds, but this time it would not be so lucky. The meat and the hide that the creature would provide made the hivers happy too. And so our struggler continues, wandering ever northwards, not knowing what destination this caravan had in mind. Cat would follow, as long as their paths stayed matched. For reasons unknown to Cat at the time, the caravan took to the sea, struggling to keep up, and with his skin burning, it seemed for the hivers that this was nothing more than a chance to clean. And after that lengthy dip, Cat certainly was feeling cleaner, if not more than a little scorched. It was strange. He could have sworn he heard some of the bodyguards laughing. Hivers weren't well known for their emotions, but just like any living creature, they still had them. And while the dip was refreshing, it was more than certainly a practical joke. This time, however, it was clear that it was no joke. The caravan wished Cat and Dog well. Their path did take them northwards, however their shortcut was one that Cat could not follow. While his skin was harder than most Greenlanders, he'd not survive a dip so long, and the waters of this gulf still stung like no other. And so it was just the two of them again, Cat and Dog, the very edge of the wetlands of Vane, and with distant travelers in sight, what dangers await. The land itself was known as Dreg, and the first signs of civilization weren't so welcoming. It was a camp, empty for the time being, but torches were lit next to fire pits that contained meat, but not just any meat. Hands and torsos were visible, and the poles scattered around had chains and cuffs, clearly meant for binding a being to. There was, however, a village within sight, Perhaps the hivers there would know more, but before taking one more step, Cat would have an answer to his questions. 2 small painted beings, poorly armored and unskilled in the ways of the blade. They were dealt with swiftly, but they bled like humans. They weren't hivers, that much was clear. To the village then, for answers. There was coin to be made in the business of removing cannibalistic threats. The workers were friendly, accommodating even, and happy to trade for some of the grillo fur that Cat had acquired earlier. And while it was true that they had lost some of their kin to these cannibals, they had no intention of paying Cat to remove them. They were a fringe element, not to be concerned with. The villagers seemed more concerned with the creeping fog. Every few months, it would rise over the hills and come closer to the village. The hivers here spoke of fog people, but so too did they speak of a great city within the fog. The ballsiest of their caravans would make the journey when the fog was at its lowest, but many never returned. The legend had Cat intrigued. Surely a mysterious city surrounded by fog would be safe from the nation. Or maybe it was just that, a legend. With the sun still high in the sky, a choice would need to be made. As much as he wanted to race off, chasing the legend right now, doing so while he was still injured, wouldn't be wise. He could hear them, his old masters and the shinobi thieves, pleading with him to be patient, and so he would be. After 2 days of slow recovery, the morning has arrived and Cat is ready to travel once again. The hivers had been good to them, and their warnings seemed sincere. Not far from the village, the first piece of resistance was found, but by now Cat was familiar with trouble. But as they got closer, the fog grew thicker. So far, that part of the legend was true. Sound carried strange within the fog. They could hear movement. Rocks sliding down hills, the clang of metal, and the utter lack of wind. The old discarded machinery seemed as good a landmark as any, and that's when they emerged from the fog. The creatures that they were warned of, the fogmen, clearly hivers, yet they were different. Their skin was blue, their blood white like their eyes. While he was outnumbered, Cat seemed to have more skill than the creatures attacking him, wielding crude clubs of scrap metal, and after a few moments of panic, Dog was found, rather happily running about with one of their limbs in his mouth. So this part of the legend was true. The fog and the fogmen within it, then perhaps so too was the city. Slightly higher up and above the fog, no such sight, but it must be here, somewhere. While pondering his course, screams could be heard again, reinforcements, and a decent number at that. But nothing that would cause Cat too much sweat, and then he heard it, yelping. Dog was in danger, and in more than a little bit of it, he would need to be fast. fighting to reach his friend, till finally the numbers would overwhelm him. The small beings carried him away to an unknown destination. Fading in and out of consciousness, he could hear Dog continuing to fight. He could feel grass as they moved deeper into the fog, until finally they arrived. Bound and bleeding is where we leave Cat today, as it seems he isn't the only victim to have fallen. Perhaps he can use this distraction to his advantage. Will it work? Only time will tell. Thank you all for joining me for another episode here with Cat in the world of Kenshi, a world that has many dangers, both visible and not. If you enjoyed, please consider leaving a comment or a like to let me know if you enjoyed the show. Thank you so much for your patience. I know it's been a long time since we've sat back down with Kenshi. I look forward to doing so again. For now, I have been Rycon. You have all been awesome. And until next time, stay tuned.